In this video, we're going to go over the top 5 problems that we have found on this BMW 550i. Something like this valve cover that could leak oil is pretty common, but could this actually give you a vacuum leak and a drivability issue? Let's get into it. The first problem we're going to talk about is the alternator. Now, this could actually leave you stranded if you're driving down the road and you see the little battery light pop up on your dash. The alternator most likely isn't charging the battery properly. And over time, they get weak, they don't work anymore, and they need to be replaced. It's buried in this engine a little bit. It's pretty far down there, but it's not impossible. When the alternator fails, then it's not charging your battery properly. So while you're driving down the road, the only thing running any of the electronics is the battery. Eventually the battery's going to drain down and you're going to end up getting stuck. That's how it's going to leave you stranded. And if you need any parts such as a water pump, you can get those at 1aauto.com. And that leads us into the next problem, coolant leaks. The symptoms you're going to notice is a warning light on the dash saying the coolant level's low. You may notice that the heat is not working properly. The engine's not necessarily overheating, but there's not enough flow getting to the heater core. And you may even see coolant dripping on the ground. There's many coolant components that could cause leaks, but the most common that we've seen is the water pump and the coolant reservoir. The next problem on our list is the VVT solenoid. In BMW world, they call this the VANOS solenoid. And this is what's going to control the flow of oil to be able to adjust the cam timing. So if this fails, you're going to notice a rough idle and definitely a check engine light. These are pretty easy to replace, and the advantage of these is it's going to give you the ability to have a little bit more horsepower and fuel efficiency in a smaller engine size. Getting back to the valve cover, we mentioned that you're going to have oil leaks coming from this, but you could also have a vacuum leak. How that happens is over time it's made of plastic, it could warp, and if you just replace the gasket, unwanted air can enter in the engine. That's going to give you a rough idle and possibly a check engine light. So if you end up replacing valve covers and you have a check engine light, chances are the valve cover itself is leaking, not just the gasket. And the last problem we have is transmission problems. You may notice that you have either a shifting issue, the vehicle won't shift properly, it shifts a little too harsh, or it won't even go into gear. Now, some may think that at this point you just need to have the transmission replaced, and that's not always the case. It's a good idea to have it diagnosed because there is instances where the fluid could be low, the fluid could be dirty and just needs to be changed, which that's not normally a good fix for a transmission issue, but it is a possibility. And if the transmission is leaking, if the pan is leaking or the gasket, that could be why the fluid level is low, and that is going to give you some symptoms of not shifting properly. The other thing is valve bodies inside the transmission, which even a valve body is going to be less expensive than replacing the whole assembly. So if you're having transmission issues, definitely have it diagnosed so that you can figure out what's going on before just replacing the transmission.